Time for another album review right here on Album Review TV. Today I'm reviewing Bullet for My Valentine's Temper Temper, due for release February 12th. And I have to say that this is one of the most disappointing albums of the year so far for me, but I want to go ahead and get into it as to why that's the case. Bullet for My Valentine is a heavy metal / metal band that I have been a fan of since around 2005 or so. Need for Speed Most Wanted had Hand of Blood on the soundtrack for the game. That's really what got me into them. I heard Tears Don't Fall, which is one of my favorite songs of all time, and I just really started getting into the album The Poison. And what they've come to from that point in their career to go to from that down to Temper Temper is just kind of an insult to the band. They've taken a big step back here, especially with songwriting styles, just the way some of the music is presented to us, the listener, and I don't know, I feel like a lot of fans have been upset after hearing reactions to the first two singles, Temper Temper, the title track, and Riot. Their style has definitely evolved throughout the years, and their last album that was released in 2010, Fever, was a really solid effort. The lead single, Your Betrayal, was great, and there was just a lot of good tracks on that album. Not my favorite by them overall, but still a lot more enjoyable than what I'm finding here on Temper Temper. I'm going to go ahead and get my biggest criticisms out of the way first, and then I'll focus on some of the things that I found more positive about the album. First up, two singles, Riot and Temper Temper. Riot is just painful for me to listen to, especially when the chorus rolls around. Just the blandness and lack of creativity found on this track, as well as Temper Temper, especially in the songwriting process. It feels like when this was written, there just was hardly any effort put into it at all. The lyrical content of both of these songs feel about as strong as something written by Nickelback. So personally, I cannot stand either of these tracks. Temper Temper, the guitar solo, it just comes like seemingly out of nowhere and just kind of sneaks up on you and attacks hardcore. It doesn't fit the pacing of the song at all. The verses in Temper Temper are just painful lyrically to listen to. There's a lot of themes that deal with anger and anger issues here on this album, and somebody needs to get something under control, because this is just ridiculous how like generic and like just mainstream rock that both of these tracks are. Whoever picked these to be the singles, something needs to be done to them, like punishment. Alright, now there are songs here that I do enjoy. Breaking Point is one of those. It starts off cool enough. I like the guitar intro with the scream and everything. That actually sounds pretty awesome. But the lyrics are a bit of a downfall here for me on this track, and that's really the case on a lot of the album. A lot of it just does not seem as well written as a lot of their past stuff. And while that's not exactly the worst case scenario here on Breaking Point, it's not the worst on the album lyrically by any means, and musically it actually is really solid, but an overall complaint for the album is just the writing process. It feels rushed. The guitar solo on this track actually does really sound slick and cool. POW actually delivers lyrically and is probably the most enjoyable track on the album for me to listen to. Dirty Little Secret is also actually fairly strong lyrically. I'm not going to say it's the best in their catalog, but I actually dig this song musically a lot. The guitars and the drumming on this track really stand out to me a little bit more than a lot of the others on this one, so that's definitely why it's up there on my favorites list. I also really like the extended intro, almost a minute long, on Dirty Little Secret. That's something I really like to see from the band, and it's something found here on this track. There's songs that definitely bring mixed feelings from me, like Leech and Saints and Sinners. Those are ones that I'm just kind of on the fence about. Don't really see myself listening to them far into the future, but that is actually the problem I have with a lot of this record. Alright, now for the track that a lot of you guys are probably very curious as to how I feel about it. I haven't mentioned it yet on purpose, and that is because it's probably the most controversial track on the record. It's Tears Don't Fall, Part 2. First of all, let me just say that I absolutely hate the fact that they made a sequel to one of my favorite songs of all time off of a classic record, The Poison, that I just feel should be left untouched. And second here, I hate the fact that they made a bad and bland sequel to a song that I love so much. I don't understand why they felt the need to make a sequel to a song that is so old. It's been 8 years since that album in particular, and I don't know if they're trying to live off of the success of that original single and hoping that more people check it out or something like that because of the title, but what I can tell you here is that it's just a very bland track that tries to just copy the original almost in every single way. It's made up of recycled material, recycled riffs from the first song that are just played a little bit differently, but you can still kind of tell that the melody is very familiar. Even the way the whole song is set up, the basic outline of the song is set up the exact same way. And even when it gets to the guitar breakdown and the guitar solo, it sounds very similar, and it sounds like something that's definitely you've heard before. If you've ever heard the original, you can't help but hear the exact same song just being played a little bit differently here on part 2, with some different lyrics thrown in, of course. Definitely a big thumbs down on that song especially. As for overall favorites on this record, I'm going with POW, Dead to the World, which is actually a really cool track that picks up the pace in the second half, but I really like the way that the song starts off slow and builds into something that's really cool. Like that one a whole lot, that's one I'm digging on. Dirty Little Secret, as well as Breaking Point and Living Life on the Edge of Knife. Overall, this album lacks creativity, originality, and just anything that really sets it apart from a lot of mainstream rock releases, and that's a lot of the problem I'm having here on this record. There's a few standout songs, like I've mentioned, my personal favorites. Those are the ones that I feel like stand out the most to me, at least when I'm listening through, but I don't see myself listening to this down the road. Maybe a few here and there every now and then, but not a long shelf life to this record. I wouldn't suggest picking it up unless you're a really hardcore Bullet fan, so 2.5 out of 5 for me. That's my rating. I know a lot of you guys are probably going to hate on that and just love everything Bullet for My Valentine and everything they do, no matter what, but if you really compare it to their past releases, there's just not that much here to love. Make sure you subscribe. Check out my second channel, Beyond ARTV, with track reviews, music news, and all that stuff over there. Facebook, Twitter, all the other links are below in the description. Until next time, guys, right here on Album Review TV, Beyond the Reviews.